Erik Halterman of RotoWire here with 5 players to pick up this weekend and 1 to leave on the wire. Let's start with Reese Olson, pitcher for the Tigers. He was slightly better than average in strikeout rate, walk rate, and ground ball last year, which is a good way to be interesting, but he wasn't much more than average in any of them. And he started this year pretty shaky, so he's probably been ignored in a lot of your leagues. But over his last 6 starts, he owns a 1.21 ERA with a 25% strikeout rate against just a 7% walk rate. He's increased his ground ball rate, which was just shy of 43% last year, all the way up to 55% this season, making gains in all the right areas all at the same time. You love to see that, especially ahead of a 2-start week next week against the Royals and the Blue Jays. Next pitcher is Jose Soriano, and we can't let a starter who sits 99.5 sit on the wire forever, can we? Even in those shallower leagues. That elite velocity for Soriano hasn't yet turned into a high strikeout rate, just 23%, and Soriano has a very high walk rate at 12%, but he does have a ground ball rate over 60%, which means there's something of the early career Jordan Hicks to Jose Soriano. Has elite velocity, but that doesn't lead to whiffs. Instead, it just leads to weak contact. Soriano did have more whiffs in the minors, 31% strikeout rate over the last 3 years, so there could be a little bit more here, which with that velocity, that's enough to take a chance. Very limited faith in Soriano's long-term durability, given that, again, he throws 99.5, and he's had a pair of Tommy John surgeries. So I don't know about long-term, but in the short term, let's see where this goes. Our first hitter today, Joey Ortiz, came over in the Corbin Burnes trade. He might just be a quality utility man, but he's showing more than that recently. OPS on the season all the way up to 895, and it's mostly due to great plate discipline, an 18% strikeout rate against a 14% walk rate for Ortiz. His quality of contact is fine, but nothing too exciting, a 39% hard hit rate and a 7% barrel rate. But hey, if he keeps it there while keeping up his great plate discipline, that's more than enough, especially when you throw in the fact that he's eligible at both second base and third base in most leagues, which should mean he's also eligible at both middle and corner. So a great guy for the end of your roster. In the outfield, how about Tommy Pham, who arrived on the south side of Chicago in late April and is doing everything he can to leave as soon as possible. He is hitting .333 on the season and has cut his strikeout rate all the way down to 12%. We'll see if that sticks, but even if it doesn't, what will stick is a ton of playing time for Tommy Pham. He's hitting first or second nearly every game of the White Sox, playing pretty much every day. And yes, it's the White Sox, just about the worst possible team contact for Pham, but playing time is playing time. Doesn't really matter where it is, so we should see a ton of at-bats for Pham, and he's been great on a per-game basis. Last year, he was on pace for 20 homers and 27 steals over 600 plate appearances, ended up coming to the plate 481 times, but if he's in more than a part-time role this season, at least as long as he remains for the White Sox, you want him in your lineup. Finally, let's go to Miguel Vargas, who's getting another shot with the Dodgers, this time as a left fielder. He struggled offensively and defensively as a second baseman last year, had a .672 OPS in half a season, 7 homers, 3 steals, nothing special, but in 39 AAA games this season, Vargas has a .1019 OPS with 8 homers, 8 steals, and more walks than strikeouts for Vargas. He was always supposed to be a good hitter, and the projections are now calling for him to have a WRC plus between 111 and 117 this season. That's solidly above average. That's good enough to hold down some playing time in the corner outfield. I wouldn't go crazy on the bidding for Vargas because the playing time isn't necessarily there. This is a very good and deep Dodgers team, but Vargas is still young and was supposed to be a good player, so if he puts it together 1 year later than expected, I want him on my lineup in case that happens. And finally, a player that I don't want you to pick up this week, and that is Jaylen Baez, the closer for the Rockies. And yes, he is the Rockies closer. His usage suggests that he definitely is the guy, but you do not need the Rockies closer, whether it's Jaylen Baez or their previous closer or their next closer or the one after that. They don't win enough games to give you enough saves, and half their games are at Coors. Are you really even going to start him for half those saves? And is Jaylen Baez really even going to keep the job for very long? He has 14 strikeouts against 11 walks in 20 and a third innings this season. A 2.21 ERA, sure, but his xFIP is all the way up at 5.22. I don't think Baez is staying the closer for long, and even if he does, I wouldn't want him on my team. Leave Jaylen Baez on the wire. For more names, check out the Saturday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast and me and my co-host Ryan Boyer, or go to rotowire.com.